So to kick things off, I do start with the same boring ass question every single time. Simple introduction, man. Who are you, and just a little background on yourself?
Damien, I sing and write for the Requiem. I've been in music for around 5 years now, I would say, like really trying to make it happen. Before that, I've always loved music, but I never really thought I could do it because I don't know how to write music. I mean, I don't know how to read music, and I
Right.
didn't really have, like a natural talent to play an instrument. So, but I've always been around music, and it's like, like the one consistent thing in my life that I always like find myself drawn to.
Yeah, awesome. And it's cool to hear that because I think that is one of the very discouraging points for a lot of people is when they don't know how to read music
Mhm.
or they're not, classically trained or whatever, even in an alternative music space or a metal space or whatever, like I think people get hung up on that like, well, I don't
Yeah.
I don't know how to read it or whatever. And it's like,
hmm
cool, there's other ways to do it, whether it's, tabbing out guitar, or if you're not, inclined enough to be able to play an instrument or naturally talented enough to play an instrument, vocals are always a thing, and
Yeah.
if you feel like you can't sing, first off, there's some people that do not have clean vocals at all, so don't be
Yeah.
afraid of that. But number two is like, music is just expression, right? And everybody
Exactly.
needs help expressing, so whether it's songwriting or whatever, there's definitely space to be involved in this.
100%, yeah.
Yeah. So for you, kind of as you were growing up and whatnot, when was that? You said, about 5 years ago is when it like really became a focus that this is something that you were going to pursue. But like, was there a light bulb moment for you growing up where it was like, I think music is the path I want to take?
For sure. I mean, there was definitely a couple like moments that felt like that, but I think because my dad was in music, he was a promoter and manager in my country. I was always around musicians, and I was always like just seeing how they lived and like seeing how they were like very, I don't know, even though they were adults, they were like always having fun and they didn't seem like they had boring
Yeah.
lifestyle. So that I think that was the first thing that always like was like, oh man, that'd be so cool to just do that. And then I think another moment that was very key for me was I saw Muse open
Hmm.
for U2 and the 360 tour back in like 2008, I think, 2009.
Yeah. Right around there. Yeah.
And yeah, they were playing Nights of Sidonia, and that shit was like, oh man, I don't know. It was like 300,000 people screaming the lyrics, and I was like, that's something I would really love doing.
Yeah. See, and that's something I love too, is hearing, when an artist comes from a different genre or soundscape, and then they
Mhm.
mention, like Muse is one of those bands. I don't care who you are, if you're involved in music at all, like Muse is one of those bands
Oh yeah,
everybody can look at and appreciate because
they're
like
so good.
they've got so much technical talent. The lyrics
hmm
are incredible. Like
Yeah,
they're showmen. Like they just don't fucking miss. So
yeah,
whether you're a heavy fan or not, like, and Muse is not, heavy by that stretch, so it's like to see like someone in your kind of soundscape, if you will, acknowledging that, yeah, I still get something out of this quote unquote lighter side of the music.
yeah. No, I mean, I've always been very open to softer styles of music because my dad wasn't. So it was like, you know how usually parents are into very conservative music, so
Yeah.
the kids are into really heavy music. For me, it was the opposite. My dad was like working with bands that were like new metal and aggro metal, so they all sounded like Rage Against the Machine combined
Hmm.
with like Korn and shit like that. So for me, it was more so like finding music that was softer and like indie that was like, oh, this is really good. But like, that was like my thing that I found on my own.
Yeah.
So yeah, no, Muse was definitely one of those bands.
Yeah, that's really funny because mine was kind of similar. Like my dad was very much the
Hell
classic
yeah.
rock guy, right? Like it was all Metallica and
Yeah.
and Led Zeppelin and all that. And I went into the punk and pop punk realm of like Green Day and checking out the Ramones and all this shit. That's
Yeah.
like that's not even close to what dad listens to, man. I think it's cool because it's like this subconscious, like it's a really easy way to rebel against your parents without like being an asshole about it, right?
Yeah,
Like
yeah, no. For sure. And like eventually you can turn them too, because like, my dad would never listen to anything softer back in the day, but now he listens to everything too. Kind of like I've put him on so much music.
Yeah. Awesome. Talk about that a little bit. You mentioned growing up around all these, rock stars, if you will,
Hmm.
and seeing that lifestyle. How do you think that influenced kind of your mentality with um, the viability within the music industry? Like recognizing that it is possible to make a living at this.
Well, I really didn't. I'm not gonna lie, because where I'm from, bands don't really make it. It's just always a hobby. Even when you are living off of it, you're not living well off of it. So,
Right.
when we moved to America, it was really like I still didn't have that, security or confidence in that I could actually do it for a living.
Yeah.
But I didn't do well in school. Ultimately, I ended up dropping out like sophomore year, and then it really seemed at the time like there was nothing else for me to do. So I just wanted to try the one thing that I was always like a little scared to try. And then after a couple years, it just, continued to give more and more fruition, and it put me like in front of more and more like-minded people. And
Hmm.
then I learned, that in here you can actually make it, and if you make it here, you make it everywhere else per default. So,
Yeah.
um, yeah, no, I mean, I think the viability of music is something I've recently come to like be able to see in other people, and that's wonderful. I think it's awesome, and the more people that I've met in the industry, the more I can see that you can really, have a great life through music.
Yeah, for sure. So being in a more, non-mainstream type of soundscape genre, I hate putting people in genre boxes too, because nobody fucking
Okay.
fits in one box anymore. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
metal is not metal. Like there's 9 million variations on it, so fuck it. Uh, but being in a non-pop type of soundscape for you, like recognizing that maybe my music won't be played on much radio, things like that. Has that
Yeah.
kind of influenced anything within you as far as your writing, or is it kind of just fueling the fire to some extent that like we don't live in an age where I have to rely on radio anymore?
Um, yeah, I mean, I think that the main thing I've always sought from music, ever since I started taking it seriously, was for it to allow me to just not do anything else and to like, live in peace. And I think that it's very doable through heavy music nowadays because,
Mm-hmm.
we don't have to rely on radio anymore. That shit's just amazing. I think that there's a crowd for everything now, and there's a huge market for like heavy music. I see these, festivals happening all the time, and it's like I don't know, it's getting bigger and bigger, and I can't wait for it to, I guess, I don't know if come back to the mainstream would be the right word, because heavy music was never really that mainstream, but I feel like in the early 2000s it really hit a peak with like how bands could get really fucking huge.
Yeah.
And I think it's slowly coming back. I mean, through maybe not the best artists in the forefront, but for sure it's coming back.
Yeah. I think you're right. I think, there was a peak in the early 2000s with like
Hmm. Good
um
Charlotte, man. That band got
yeah,
fucking huge.
yeah, Good Charlotte's
Fallout
one,
Boy.
Fallout Boy for the pop punk scene and things like that. But even in the heavier like music, or like maybe the quote unquote darker music, Marilyn Manson was really big back then, and
Yeah.
you had
Rob Zombie.
Rob Zombie making it big again. And I think the thing with like the heavier side of music is it's always had, like, it goes in these cycles where there's a couple artists that make it to be like household names, right? Like
Yeah.
back in the 80s, Metallica, Ozzy,
Hmm.
Iron Maiden, and then it kind of fell off. And then
Yeah.
again,
No, but
to
they
your
always open the door for everyone. Like how you mentioned Manson, he definitely opened the door for artists like, I would say like Rob Zombie and like fucking like Ministry and all the industrial stuff. I mean, and
yeah,
then for Metallica, it was all the Bay Area bands like fucking what was Exodus, I think.
yep,
Was it?
Exodus
Yeah.
and Anthrax back in the day. They weren't from the Bay Area, but like
Yeah,
they
they were
came up
from New
right
York,
around the
right?
same time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So all those
So
bands came right after those. So it's like I feel like it's same in grunge, you know, fucking
mhm.
what was that one band? Chris Cornell's band.
Nirvana,
No, Soundgarden.
Audio Slave, Soundgarden. Yeah.
Yeah, Soundgarden,
Pick
and
one
then
of his five
Nirvana
bands.
came. Yeah, and then Nirvana, you know, and Pearl Jam and all those bands. It's like I feel like all it takes is just one really good band to make it big, and it opens the door for all the other bands in that type of sound or in that scene. And it just, I feel like it makes people's ears, you know, fall more into tune with those styles. And it's really good when that happens.
Yeah, yeah, I totally agree, and I think the most current. We don't have to shit talk on anybody, so we won't name some of them, but like I think Bring Me the Horizon has been one of those bands that
Oh,
through their
great band.
evolution of
Yeah.
sound, it's incredible the number of doors that they've opened for people
Yep.
because it's
Yep.
every album is something a little different. It's still heavy, but
Exactly.
it's not death metal anymore. It's this. It's not,
Yep.
the fact that they partnered with fucking baby metal, like who
Yep,
would have ever
yep.
guessed that
That
was
shit
a
was
thing?
crazy. Um, oh man, that is like one of the bands that is like probably one of the biggest inspirations for us. I feel like as the way that they approach music more than the sound,
Hmm.
because we don't really sound like them, but the way that they've been approaching music in the last couple of records is like they make sure that every song sounds completely different from the previous one.
Yeah.
And that is something I value so much because in most styles of music, when you make an album, you know, you're expected to kind of stay within a realm of a sound
Hmm.
or, you know, within a theme. But I love how they can just, you know, make like a roller coaster of an album where it's like one song is super sad and the other song is like super hyped and the other song is electronic and then the next one is like violins in it.
Yeah.
Um, I feel like that approach is something we've wanted to do since the very beginning and we've really fully explored in this record that's about to come out. We wanted to like make a point of it that like when we were writing the songs, we wouldn't put in two songs that sounded the same right after each other.
Yeah. And I think it's cool too because it's getting as the digital age has moved forward. I think this is something that Bring Me's a great example of. Like the digital age moved forward, and streaming became more popular than radio. So now people can just pick what song they want to listen to. So now every
A
song
100%,
has
yeah.
to be strong enough to be a single,
Mm-hmm.
in a sense, because like
Yep.
I don't know what's going to work anymore.
Yep. Another reason why I feel like we wanted to do that is because whenever you see bands like Bring Me that are very diverse drop a song that is not what they usually drop anymore, no one's surprised anymore. Because it's like, oh, well,
Right.
they did that in a previous album, one of the songs. So it's like you're not limited by a style anymore, and people don't, you know, go like, oh my God, what are they doing? Like when you drop something that's like coming out of left field. But yeah, no, that band has grown so much. I used to watch their the Lads on Tour documentaries
Hmm.
when I was a kid,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
now they're
They're
fucking huge.
they're dope, and I think it's really cool because it does I to tie back into your music. I think it opens that door for this new album that's going to be dropping on the 16th of February. And I think it does open that door, like you said, to be able to say, like, hey, it's okay that songs one, two, and three all sound completely different than each other.
Yeah,
And then maybe the sounds kind of repeat somewhere in the album, but they don't have to anymore.
yeah,
It's not,
no.
I'm gonna shit on them a little bit because they get shit on. It's not a Nickelback album, right? We don't need every song to sound the exact same.
Hey man, Nickelback go hard sometimes though. They have some,
They do, they do. But
they
I'm
have
just,
some
like
bangers.
that first album though, like I mean, it was okay. This is a rock album, and it was
Yeah,
very
no, they have
traditional and
a
structured
very
rock.
like solidified style.
Yeah,
But yeah, no, I agree 100%. It's just you don't have to make it an album sound very like repetitive. I think that it also allows you to like still have a concept, but it's a little harder because you have to just do the theme. You know, you could do it with the
right.
lyrics, or you could do it with like the overall like ambience of everything rather than like with the specific approach to each song.
Yeah, yeah. I totally agree, and I think that's where the the heavy and alternative space is kind of starting to lean into. It feels weird to call them concept albums because it's not, the
Hmm.
old Coheed and Cambria literally telling a
Oh
story
yeah.
through their songs.
Hmm.
But like in the heavy and alternative space, it does seem like a lot of albums are doing this kind of like concept album from a really high point of view where like
Yep.
there's an overarching story throughout, but I'm not going to literally read you chapter by chapter through the
Yeah.
songs. You have to piece it together.
Hmm. And I
Yeah.
love concept records. I think they're like usually the most inspirational kind within music, because it's like multiple forms of art within a record. It's not just music at that point.
Yeah.
I mean, one of our biggest influences is Mike Ham, and they've done it multiple
Mm-hmm.
times, and it's always like how you mentioned, like they're not like holding you by the hand through the meaning of each song, but if you really like pay attention to it, you look at it, it's like wow, it's a whole story that's written down pretty much.
Yeah. And I mean, we'll use both of them as examples. Like they're the exception to the rule, right? Claudio and Gerard, like these fucking masterminds
Yep.
of people. Like not only are they insanely talented musicians, but both of them have created comic book universes. And
Yep.
Mike Kim with the
Literally, yeah.
Umbrella Academy stuff, and
Uh-huh.
it's like holy shit, like what is going on? So their level of talent is unmatched, really. But again, it opens that door that we were talking about earlier too, where maybe somebody likes the sci-fi thing, so they watch Umbrella
Yep.
Academy, and then they go, "Oh shit! Like
That's
this
how they
dude has a
found, yeah,
band. Like let's go into that."
exactly.
So the doors are just unlimited at this point. Um, let's talk about the new album, some man. You've dropped some singles.
For sure. Yeah.
Um, I personally am really digging "I'll Be Late for My Funeral."
Thank you.
Um, for a couple of reasons, sonically and everything, it's awesome. But that's really funny because I used to say that all the time. Like I'm one of those people that I'm like super stubborn, chronically late, all that, and I'm like, when I die, I'll be late to my own funeral. It's
Yep.
gonna fuck me up. So,
Hmm.
um, but for you, like going through this album writing process, what was it like? Trying to craft this soundscape like we've been talking about, and figuring out the dynamics between the songs, because like you said, you don't want to create a record that when people listen to it go, okay, I heard 3 songs, I know the whole album.
Yeah. I feel like the connectivity between each the songs was made more so through the lyrics and through the, I guess, visual content that we've been adding here and there in our music videos.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but I think the majority of the songs are like relating uh, death and the idea of like getting closer to an ending and to like, I guess, coming to terms with mortality, and also um going through the emotions that one feels at that point, a lot of anger, a lot of sadness, but in some cases a lot of like liberation and just like, whatever type energy.
Yeah, yeah, and I think
So
that's
I think
go ahead.
go ahead.
I was just gonna say
I
I
was
think
gonna say
that's
I
really
think
cool
that
because
oh hell yeah.
yeah, I think it's really cool because like it's something that whether someone has had a near death experience or not, like we all know people that have died, so we've all dealt with some of those things
Oh yeah,
with it
sometimes too
in
many,
some
bro.
for sure, for sure. And unfortunately from the wrong causes a lot of times too,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like unfortunately not everybody just passes of natural causes when they're 170 years old or anything.
Yep.
So for you, pouring this out into an album, um like from a mental health standpoint too, how do you feel like that's kind of that release and cathartic experience for you, or is it just like a
Yeah,
natural thing?
100% cathartic. Yeah, especially when other people talk about them and they come back to you and they're like, "Yo, that song really helped me." That I think that is the most beautiful feeling any artist could ever have, because I think that's a power that usually only art gets to have.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and it's like a transaction between, like, the person that makes the art and the person who views the art and appreciates it. It's like, I don't know, it's like a kind of like a transaction of energy in a way, I guess. I
Yeah.
mean, it sounds very corny, but it's like, yeah, no, definitely cathartic, because it makes you feel less alone about the things that you're trying to talk about. When someone can say, "Yo, I've been through the same shit."
Yeah, for sure. And I think, that's it's funny because obviously growing up, none of my family listened to the heavier stuff and things like
Hmm.
that. So I always got questions from like aunts, uncles, whatever, like, how can you listen to all this sad stuff or this angry stuff? And I'm like, because it's what I relate to. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
I feel like I'm going through the same shit. So
Hmm.
seeing someone else that is talking about it or, has made it through something like that, now I'm not alone. And now I can fight that, whatever that
Yep.
energy is as well.
Yeah, no, I think that's the most beautiful thing about music, that at the end of the day, it connects people. That's the whole point of it.
Yeah. And I think, it's funny too, because like, again, the alternative and heavy music scene gets the bad rap, right? Like, oh, it's scary, it's dangerous, it's whatever. And it's like, go to a metal show and
Yeah.
like if you're fully unaware of what a metal show's like, it probably is scary on the surface. But talk to any one of those people and you'll quickly understand like
The
everybody's here to
nicest.
have a good time. Everybody's the nicest. They want to hear
Yeah.
your story. Like you're you're never truly in danger at a metal show.
Yeah. 100%.
Yeah. So you've again dropped a few of the singles. What goes into your thought process as you're, I mean, obviously we'll talk about teaming with Fearless Records as
Mhm.
well. So that probably plays some of the factor, but what goes into your thought process on like, okay, I know this is going to be a single or, we need to drop these in this order type of thing.
I feel like you know right away when you are like smiling like an idiot when you're writing the song. It's like, oh, okay, that is definitely the single.
Yeah.
I feel like that's a feeling we had that with a couple songs. Me and Felipe, our guitarist, we had that feeling about track 6, Cursed, which is one of the upcoming singles that we have coming out. That song, like literally, like smiling at each other when writing it, because it's like, yeah, like this is ridiculous. This is so fucking good, and it's like, yeah, no, you know right away. With other songs, sometimes it's surprising, and I think I like it more when it's surprising than when you know right away, because like when you know right away it's gonna be a good song, there's always gonna be some other people that feel similar about it. But when it's a song that like when you write it you don't initially like and then people fucking love it, it's like, oh shit, like okay, maybe I gotta listen to it again and see what they're liking about it. Um, so yeah, no, with Fearless we had a kind of a moment like that where they really liked this other track that we had that we didn't really like, and then going back to it now, like every time I listen to it, it's like, okay, I see everything that they pointed out before now.
Yeah. Well, they're one of those labels. I've said this about everybody that they have on their roster, really. Like they are a label that a is super well established and knows what
Hmm.
they're doing, right? They're not a fly by night by any means. Um, but I think the crazy thing is like when you really look at their roster, whether it's the current active roster or the alumni, they've had their hands in virtually every type of music.
Yep.
So if they, I'm not saying they're going to be 100% right every time, but if they have a suggestion, it's like, well, fuck, who am I to disagree?
Yeah.
Like
Nah,
they've seen
100%.
it.
Especially when like the team that we've been working with directly is like the coolest motherfuckers ever. I love them. And they love what we do too. So it's like it's not only like a work relationship, they also like actually have listened to our music, and like so they know what we're going for, and you know they take care of us with like their advice and all.
Yeah, and I've heard that a ton about them, like that they're one of those labels that we're not just signing people because we think we can make money or whatever. Like we're signing people that we're fans of
Yeah, they
and we
believe
know
in.
that they're gonna, be able to
Hmm.
make it where they want to go.
Yeah.
And I think, it's really cool that again with that diversity, it also opens the door from a touring aspect, right? Like if Fearless said tomorrow, hey, you guys are gonna go on tour with label mates, God only knows what that fucking tour is going to look like because they have so many options to put you on the
Yeah,
road with.
literally. No, they're a great label. I love working with them, and they've been nothing but a blessing since we started, getting in contact with them.
Yeah.
I think that as a kid, I always like, that's like one of the holy trinity. You feel me? You got Epitaph, Sumerian, and Fearless. That's like when we started talking with them, I was like so happy. I felt like completing a goal that I had for like half my life.
Yeah. Whether you even realized it was a goal or not, right? Like subconsciously
Yeah,
it was a goal that
exactly.
they're going to be someone that I want to work with. Um,
Yeah, I mean, like it was like when I was like 12, I was just subscribed to the YouTube to check out every new band that would come out, and then like fucking 10 years later, working with them.
yeah.
That's crazy.
I was just telling somebody that the other day about like, back in the day, mm, aging myself here some, I'm 38 years old. So like back in the day when MTV really played music videos as well, but
Hmm.
the early days of YouTube, like that was the thing that a lot of us did was in the lower right hand corner, there'd be the Fearless Records,
Yep,
logo or
yep,
Epitaph or whatever. And it was like, oh, dope. I'm going to go check out that label and see everybody
yep.
they've got.
Literally.
Yeah. I think it's a really cool testament to you as well, to be signed with Fearless as early into this project as you are, right? Like you've just
Yeah.
now got an album coming out. You guys have really only been pushing for the last few years, and COVID fucked up part of that anyway.
Yep.
So like it's really cool that like, okay, I've got eyes on me. I've signed with a label that believes in me and wants to support me and has the ability to put us in the right position to really be a force in the industry.
Yeah. Yeah, no. And like I said, they're just super down to earth and chill people. So it's like working with like an actual friend more than anything.
Yeah. So for people that are curious about the album, we've touched on some of the singles and stuff. Drops on February 16th. What kind of, obviously you'll have all the digital stuff, right? Like the
Hmm.
pre-saves and everything. Is there going to be any sort of like physical release? Are you planning on CDs and vinyls? Any sort of merch along with it?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, we've been working hard on the booklet of the record and like the art that's gonna go around the whole physical disc. We're trying to go for jewel cases because that's the shit we grew up on. So,
Yeah.
trying to bring that kind of like whole thing back. And then we're doing a lot of like bundles releases with that. Hopefully it's gonna be really cool. For whenever we tour, I'm hoping we can take out with us a bunch of CDs too.
Yeah. Obviously, it's still a little ways away, but is there any talks of a tour surrounding like the release of the album and
Yeah,
things like
yeah,
that?
yeah, yeah. No, we're planning a couple shows for the release of the album around February, and then we are in talks for touring. I think around April and the months after that.
Awesome. For you, kind of in your area, um, who are some bands that you're kind of playing with that idea of taking out on the road or getting out on the road with, just from kind of both sides, right? Like obviously the professional side of the band is a business, so we want to go out with
Hmm.
big bands to get more eyes, but really more on that personal side of like we're fans of these guys, or these are our friends and other bands that we want to just have a good time with.
Um, at the moment there really isn't any because I think not because we wouldn't want to tour with them, but because it wouldn't really make sense because all the really good shit coming out of Florida is either super heavy or it's just rap music. So it's like, they don't have anything that kind of correlates with our sound that's a little softer. And so it's like, um, I don't know. I mean, some of the bands that we have talked with to work on playing shows with, are more so like aesthetically,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
relating to us in a way. So we connect to that. So sometimes they're heavier, so but it's like it still makes sense. But the ones local, I feel like just I don't know, it's a lot of deathcore, really good deathcore though. I mean, we got Tracheotomy and we've got this new band, Fallen God, really good.
Mm-hmm.
But there isn't really many like just alternative rock bands around here. So
Yeah. But it's weird. Florida has always been that way, right? Like
oh yeah,
there's
no, we
such a crazy good music scene down there, but it comes in waves of like, okay, rap's really big right now, so nothing else is
yeah.
gonna make it. And um you guys are kind of, Florida in general is kind of in this weird spot too, where like in South Florida, like you said, right now, rap and the really heavy side of it. Central Florida is like the pop punk mega house right now with like Magnolia Park and
Yeah, well,
408 and some
always,
of them.
since the day to remember, I feel like,
Yeah. And
yeah.
then the northern is like, okay, we're Florida Georgia line, right? Like it's all this country and weird pop shit.
Oh man, I like some country. There's that one kid, Zach Bryan. He's pretty good.
Yeah. Yeah, there's
Yeah.
some good country, but it's just funny because like it really does seem like if you were to drive and just have a radio station like on Seek,
Yeah.
if it really worked that way, it'd be like country, pop punk, and then just some of the gnarliest, heaviest or rap
Yeah.
shit that you could get into.
100%. Yeah, no, in South Florida right now we got this kid BLP Kosher. He's really fucking good. And we had obviously the whole SoundCloud era of like Denzel, X, Ski, even Lil Pimp, all of them.
Yeah,
But I feel like yeah, no, Florida's definitely put out some of the coolest music. But the I still think the coolest music that Florida's ever put out is the Spooky Kids, but
that's fair.
yeah,
That's
no, it
fair.
hasn't been matched yet, in my opinion.
That's fair, man. And like I'm a big A Day to Remember fan, but like if you really break down a Day to Remember, like they're I'm gonna get so much shit for this. They're hit or miss, right? Like one album is really, really
Yeah,
solid, and then they change directions, and it's like, okay, it's still a day to remember, but they're just on the outside of what they do. You know what I mean? It
yeah.
almost felt forced sometimes.
Well, yeah,
Um,
that's because once again, like what we were talking about earlier, like when you start out so strong in one specific style,
yeah.
people are gonna be very uncomfortable when you try to do different stuff. So I feel like a lot of bands put themselves in that place. But they were I don't know, they came out so strong at first. I remember being up to date with pretty much everything they put out back in the day, and then around the time that Bad Vibes came out,
Hmm.
that's when I kind of
Yep.
stopped listening. Kind of just grew out of that style, I guess. But
Yeah.
they're great. I mean, we were recently, I think, the end of last year or the beginning of this year, I can't remember. We were working with what's his face, Tom.
Tom Denny. Yeah.
Yes.
Yep.
And we had the best time, man. He's the nicest dude ever. Such a legend.
And I was gonna touch on him too with kind of that Florida mentality, right? Like he was in a pop punk band, but he does music production now. He's one of the most like down to earth, but
Yep.
so in touch with like the gangster side. So he does a lot
Ah,
of rap
100%.
stuff and like
Yeah.
it's dope how that guy
He
operates.
was
And I think
super real.
yeah, he I've talked to him once at a show and it was like you don't feel like you're bothering him. Like he makes it a point to like everybody's involved.
Mm, yeah.
Yeah.
Lovely guy. Um, I think that uh there was another like sound coming out of this area in the like early 90s too. I think like bands like Cyclone Kick. It's like a weird type of Florida
Yeah.
music. Yeah. And
Yeah, I
then
think
what
I've heard
else?
them before. I can't place a song off the top of my head, but I think I've heard them.
They were like that
Um,
softer side of like glam rock, like in the 90s.
okay,
Kind of like
yeah, okay,
extreme in those bands. I feel like what else was good from here? I mean, obviously Death.
yeah.
Um, and then aren't Sleeping with Sirens from here too? From Orlando, I think.
I think they're from Orlando. Yellow Card got their start in the Jacksonville area,
Oh
so
shit, I didn't even know that. What?
yeah, yeah. Yellow Card
That's
was originally
crazy.
Jacksonville, and then they all moved out to LA, I think it was, and now they're kind of everywhere. But
Yeah.
yeah. So I mean, yeah, there's been so many fucking powerhouses come out of Florida, which also, I mean, obviously that technically doesn't matter, right? Like,
Mm,
who cares where the fuck you're from? But
yeah.
the track record of Florida is pretty fucking good to say.
Yeah.
Like, if you're onto
Newfound
something,
Glory
it's going to
too.
be looked. Yeah, Newfound Glory's there as well.
I feel like it's just ultimately the environment. Like when you're in Florida, you're in so many different situations. Every time you go out, you're in front of so many different people from so many different backgrounds. It's a huge melting pot, just like LA and New York and some other areas of America. So I think it breeds a lot of creativity and it breeds a lot of unique, you know, input to any type of art.
Yeah, I 100% agree, and I think it's excuse me. I think it's a really cool place right now, especially with some of this resurgence of the heavy music, and
Yeah.
it's kind of got, again, it's got, the three or four different kind of distinct zones. But the cool thing with Florida is you guys are fucking accepting of every type of music too. So like
Yeah.
you can
No,
go
for sure.
anywhere and play a show and people are going to show up because there's some fans everywhere down
Yeah. There's also not that much shit to do here anymore.
there. That's
Like
fair.
a lot of the clubs and venues have closed. So yeah, no, whenever there's something fun going on, everyone shows up.
Yeah, well, and I think, even when the clubs and stuff like that were still popular, or not shut down and things like that, I think the thing is, I've noticed it in like Chicago too. After a while you get tired of doing the same thing every fucking night, so it's like,
Hmm.
okay, we always go to this bar, we always go to this club, whatever, but there's a show like 3 blocks down, why don't we go hit that up?
Yeah. Yeah. Nah, for
Yeah,
sure.
and it's really cool too, because like, I mean, I'm in an hour north of Indianapolis, so it doesn't happen as frequently here, but like,
Hmm.
I can remember, I shoot shows up in Chicago all the time. And I remember years ago, like literally, I shot a show for a friend, walked back out on the street, and like a block down was another venue. And I'm like, fuck it, I'm going to go see what's on. You know, I didn't know who was playing, and I just
Yeah.
went in because, like, fuck it. And, you can find some really dope music that way just by
Yeah.
being open to
100%.
explore.
Yeah, no, I mean, I feel like in the last couple years we've been losing so many venues here in South Florida. It's a bit sad, but thanks to some, very driven people in the local scene, the scene is still flourishing. But it was cool when we had a lot of venues because it was like how you said, you'd walk to into one on a random night and it'd be something cool going on inside.
Yeah. I think, unfortunately, post COVID, or, COVID's what caused a lot of it. But
Yeah,
um, I think post COVID, there's, I think there's a little less drive by people to want to open music venues now, because they saw what happened through that pandemic. So now
it's
it's
a
like
volatile business now, I feel like.
yeah, they're worried that, okay, what's it going to take for this one to close, or
Yeah,
whatever. So it gets tough for sure. But I think too, the flip side of it is, again, in the digital world that we're in, like, listening to a song on Spotify or whatever is never going to give you the same feeling or connection that you get seeing it live. But the beauty of it is you can reach literally everyone in the world
everyone in the world,
theoretically.
yeah.
So you also get to be able to see, like, thanks to all the analytics and all that, like, oh shit, maybe we are popping in Chicago or
Maybe we
wherever.
should move to LA.
Yeah, like we can see where the
Yeah.
people are listening to it. So you know it's a bit of a double-edged sword, because you don't want to run into an issue where, I forget the artist that I was talking to, they had this one of their top 5 cities, they were like, cool, this next tour we're going to make sure we hit all 5 of the top 5.
Yeah.
And one of their, like, I think it was like their number 3 city, it was the worst performing ticket sales of the whole fucking
Damn.
tour. And they're like,
Oh
so people
man.
want to listen to us there, but they don't want to come see us there. Like,
Yeah.
what the fuck?
Oh shit. But it was funny you mentioned that Chicago scene because I used to be obsessed with the music coming out of there, or the music that would usually play around there in like
Yeah.
2015, 2014, like Sworn In and fucking what was the other band? Barriers, I remember used to play there a lot.
Yep. Yep.
We only
Barriers.
the band we had down here that was really representing that type of sound was Adalia. I missed them a lot. That
Yeah.
band was fucking great.
Yeah. Well, and then if you rewind it even a little further back, I mean, Fallout Boys from Chicago,
Yup,
Rise Against
yup.
is from Chicago.
Hmm.
Like, they've put out some really fucking killer, and out of all different genres. Isn't is it Childish Gambino or Tyler the Creator? One of the two, I think, is from the Chicago area as well. Like, it's dope that there's just that much diversity in their music scene as well,
Yeah,
to where
100%.
it doesn't it doesn't lock you into, okay, we have to make this type of music.
Yeah. When you said Rise Against, I got reminded of like one of the songs in the record we have is literally like worshiping Rise Against.
But see, that's dope. I mean,
Yeah.
paying homage to the bands that open these doors and have paved
Yeah,
the
no, the
way is,
greats, man. The
yeah,
greats.
yeah. And Tim is, when you look at lyricist, right? Like Tim
Oh,
is one of those
dude,
people that
fucking
it's
crazy
insane.
storyteller. Yeah.
Yeah.
I was like crying to Hero of War when I was 11. I didn't even know what the fuck he was talking about. It was
Yeah.
so good.
Yeah. Like, and if you really want to slow it down, I mean, Swing Life Away is one of those,
Yep.
like, if you sit down and listen to
Oh
that
man,
song,
such a pretty
it
song.
will fuck you up.
Yep. Yep.
Yeah. Awesome, man. So as we kind of move towards the end of the episode here, I refuse to sit down and think of better ending questions. So I bought this game called Hot Takes. And
Okay.
it's just these like shitty opinions that we can agree with, disagree with, expand on, whatever.
Bet.
So let's see. Let's start with um yeah, that's a hot take. Cheese is overrated.
Cheese is not overrated, man. What? Have you seen those videos coming out of like fucking Napoli or like someplace in Italy where they have like the whole wheel and they
Yeah.
burn it and then they put the spaghetti on it? And cheese is
Yeah,
godly.
dude, cheese is unmatched. Like, I'm partially lactose intolerant. Like, cheese doesn't, but like cheese doesn't fuck me up, but like ice cream will, or like if I drink
Yeah.
milk straight, it will. And I'm like,
Oh
you know
man.
what? I don't give a fuck. I'm gonna eat my cheese.
Yeah, no, cheese is amazing.
Oh man. Let's see. I don't think this is a hot take necessarily. You shouldn't hook up on the first date.
You shouldn't hook up on the first date. It depends, you know. Sometimes, I feel like if you really feel a connectivity, it doesn't matter.
That's fair. That's fair.
You
Could
just
be a case
gotta be
by case
always be
basis.
safe. Always be safe.
Yeah.
That's the only
Yeah.
key.
Be smart about it. Next one will be birthdays are overrated.
Birthdays are overrated. I think so, yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
I don't know. I feel like as a man, the older you grow, the less people show up to your birthdays, and the more you start realizing, hey, maybe I should have put so much focus on celebrating one day, and maybe I'd be happier if I'm just grateful for every day.
Yeah. And I think we'll get a little bit deep there. Like you said, like, especially on the male side, right? That's what we can talk about as males.
Yeah.
Like, it does feel like the older you get, the less
Oh yeah,
important your birthday
the less
becomes.
anyone gives a shit. It's like, oh,
Yeah. Yeah. But it's funny because like girls still make a huge deal out of their birthday, and they'll get,
always.
15, 20 friends going out to a fucking bar or wherever. And it's
Yeah.
like, I'll get a text, like, hey man, happy birthday. Cool. Appreciate it.
Yeah, I'll get a TikTok DM.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. All right. And then let's use this as the last one for this. Ketchup is better than any other condiment.
Hmm. Sometimes. But yeah, I feel like if I had to choose a condiment to take with me to like a fucking deserted island, yeah, no, ketchup would be it.
Yeah. I think ketchup is like the safe one, right? Like,
Yeah.
ketchup you can use pretty easily on a lot of things. Like, there's people that mustard is their thing, or relish or whatever, and it's like, yeah, on a hot dog. But
Yeah.
like, outside of a hot dog, when have you ever eaten relish? You
Yeah.
don't.
No. Hot sauce is always good with everything
Hot sauce
too.
is solid too, yeah,
Yeah.
but then you
I
have
feel
to,
like,
like, what type of hot sauce are you going for?
yeah.
Like, do I want something that's just got the good flavor and a little bit of heat, or do I want to just like burn my mouth every fucking time I go to eat?
Yeah. But yeah, no, ketchup is superior. I feel like they need to bring back the Shrek ketchup.
Yeah.
there was a version of ketchup that was green as the Shrek ketchup. That shit was
Yeah,
crazy.
bro, I'm old enough to remember before the Shrek ketchup. I forget. I think it was Heinz that did it. There was a purple ketchup, and it
Yes,
fucked
yes, it
with
was Heinz.
people.
Yeah, the Heinz did the Shrek ketchup too. And
Yeah.
Heinz was innovative, man. They need to bring that
Yeah.
back.
Yeah, it's nuts. But yeah, I think it's ketchup is by far the safest condiment. Like,
Yeah, yeah.
again, you can put it on so many different things. It doesn't fuck up the flavor if you don't, in moderation or whatever.
Hmm.
So awesome. So kind of the traditional outro that I give everybody is the last few minutes, take all the time you need. I'll obviously link all your socials and stuff, but tell people
Okay.
where they can find you, you know, best way to interact with you, what you want them to, you know, pre-save, things like that.
Okay, well, once again, Damien from the Requiem. You can find us on Instagram at the Requiem Band. You can find us on Twitter, TikTok. We have a Discord too. If you're in our Instagram, we usually post it and accept people that want to join. And our Instagram is also our link tree with every other social that we have. And that's about it.
Awesome. So again, the album's dropping February 16th via
Yes.
Fearless. You guys are, is the pre-save up now or is it
Yes, it is on the link
okay?
tree on
Yep.
Instagram.
Yep. So people can jump over and you know, pre-save it. Uh I tell people all the time that stuff helps tremendously because
Mm-hmm.
it's
Yeah,
all the free shit that helps, you know, drive the business.
it
So
really does.
awesome, man. I appreciate it. I'm really looking forward to hearing the rest of the album. I'm probably gonna hit Shane up and see if I can't sneak me a copy,
Hell yeah.
do a do a album review for you and things like that.
Hell
But
yeah. Thanks so much,
I,
man.
you know, from yeah, for sure, and from what I've heard, like I was saying earlier, like I really think you guys are put in this position where the sound is unique and yet somehow still familiar. So like people are going to
Mhm.
be able to easily latch onto it and be like, "Oh, this feels, you know, like what I'm used to, but it's
Mhm.
totally new stuff." And I think that's really cool.
Hell yeah. Thank you so much, man. And thank you for having me.
Yeah, absolutely, man. I appreciate it. We'll talk soon, okay?
Yeah. Hell yeah. Bye.
Awesome. See ya.